What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Surprise Jab Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Ruger, surprised with new topics every single weekend, jabbing you with your daily dose of UFC, and we have a very fun episode on the docket today. 3 fun topics are what we're going to be discussing. First off, I have my official predictions for the UFC in 2026, who I think will end the year as champion in all 11 divisions, who I think will have the biggest rise, and who will have the biggest fall, and it was tough. It was much tougher than last, 2 years I've tried to predict. I tried to, think outside the box with some of my bigger risers, went for some oddball picks on my champions, and we're going to go through all of them on today's episode. As well, I'll be dropping my wild card weekend predictions to end the episode for the NFL. I'm super excited to watch the Bears-Packers game at my uncle and aunt's house, or my cousin's house as well, this upcoming Saturday. And as well, what we're actually going to be kicking off the episode with here is going to be a complete recap of the top 10 fantasy performers in each position for the NFL this season. That is right, fantasy football takes over. It's insane, and I did win. I won in one of my leagues. Thank goodness, praise be, and I was very happy. I think I've made $200 off it or something, or I guess I didn't have to pay my $50 entry, and I've made $200. I don't know. I don't think all the money's been sent to me. I should look back up on it, but I say we jump right into it with that to start out, because a lot of shockers. As I was going through, I was taken aback at who wound up in the top 10. So we'll kick things off, very simple here. We'll start with our quarterbacks. Alrighty, your top 10 fantasy quarterbacks. And, I have a couple honorable mentions I'll mention. The first one is going to be Patrick Mahomes, okay? He got injured. Chiefs fell off. They weren't starting him. I'm pretty sure he didn't play the last 3 or 4 weeks of the year, and he slowly dropped. But he, finished out 11th despite missing the final 4 weeks. So, shout out to Patrick Mahomes. Sucks the Chiefs did awful this year, but is what it is. I also want to bring up another very interesting point. All 10 quarterbacks in the top 10 fantasy, which I find super interesting, are in the playoffs. All 10 of the 14 playoff teams, 10 of their quarterbacks are in the top 10 for fantasy. That is ridiculous. First up at number 10, Justin Herbert, 286.88 fantasy points. Great pickup. If you could have had him, dude was an absolute savage this year. Chargers sneaking in as the 7th seed. We'll be talking about them later, but, good work with Justin Herbert. He was able to use his legs a bit, punching some touchdowns, but also working Ladd McConkey, working with Amari Hampton with some throws, working with Quentin Johnson for a lot of touchdowns. Justin Herbert had a great year. Coming in at number 9 is Jared Goff, 297.06 fantasy football points in a PPR league, and it's expected, with Jared Goff, and he is all throwing. I think one of the more impressive things about Jared Goff is he's not a running quarterback. I'd compare him to Tom Brady. I'd compare him to Peyton Manning. When this guy gets running, it's kind of a rare commodity. So knowing that he's able to do this all through the air and knowing how many weapons he has, it's really cool to see him. But 297, 11 more fantasy points than Justin Herbert. Jared Goff is such a such a late round quarterback. A lot of people snag. Crazy to see him landing here at number 9. Coming in at number 8, kind of a disappointing year for Jalen Hurts, 299.06 fantasy points. Just missing out on the 300 mark, and a down year for the Eagles overall. I'm going to shout out Saquon Barkley not making the top 10 and actually being healthy all year. Not a good look. And for wide receivers, no A.J. Brown, no Devontae Smith. A down year for the Eagles in terms of offense. Now, for defense, great year. We're going to mention defenses in a second here. They had a top 10 defense. But offensive-wise, not doing too good, and we've seen better seasons from Jalen Hurts. We're going to see how how far the Eagles are going to go in the playoffs, but as of right now, Jalen Hurts finished at number 8. Coming in at number 7 is Bo Nix, the first quarterback in the 300s with 304.84 fantasy points. The number 1 team in my mind is the Broncos. I don't know why I just view them a bit above the Seahawks, but at least for the AFC, they're the number 1 seed. They get a bye. We will not be seeing any Bo Nix this week, not until the divisional weekend. And this guy had a great run, okay? Running it, passing it, 304 fantasy points. Bo Nix did whatever he could to champion his team. And I also just want to shout out, their defense is so nasty. They have such a good defense. But on offense, it was really Bo Nix every game being consistent. Because, one game it's Cortland Sutton, Evan Ingram has a good game, RJ Harvey, Torrey Franklin, they all have good games. So Bo Nix was the consistency the entire season, and he finishes at number 7. Coming in at number 6 for our top 10 quarterbacks, Dak Prescott, 313.78, and I just realized, guys, the Cowboys missed the playoffs. So I have incorrectly told you guys that every single top 10 quarterback made the playoffs. I completely forgot it was Dak Prescott. I don't know who I thought it was, but Dak Prescott is not. Cowboys are not in the playoffs. Dak Prescott had a great year. Everything else did not go well. Javonte Williams was on an absolute tear running backs-wise and just faded late. Honorable mention to him. And as for CeeDee Lamb, I generally don't know what happened with CeeDee Lamb. I generally don't know. I know he was hurt for a bit, but kind of on the back burner this year and really hurting a lot of people in fantasy. So honorable mention to him, but Dak Prescott did the best he could. I don't know how long his future is going to be with the Cowboys if they keep missing the playoffs. Another losing season for Dallas. Getting into our top 5, this is really where you see playoff domination. Coming in at number 5, Caleb Williams, 318.18 fantasy points. I'll be the first to admit I was wrong. I did not think Caleb Williams was going to have a good season. I did not. I was counting everyone for drafting him in fantasy. I'll happily eat my words. They're the number 2 seed. Caleb Williams having himself an amazing year, utilizing all his weapons, utilizing all the pieces, doing it himself when he has to. There's also a consistency where he's the one losing the games. But Caleb Williams is just the centerpiece of this team, oddly. And finish at number 5. We'll see how they do in the wild card when we drop our predictions. Coming in at number 4, Trevor Lawrence, 338.18. A career year for Trevor Lawrence. Jaguars getting the 3 seed, ending on a big win streak. I am super high on Jacksonville. They have a tough round 1 matchup against the Bills, but Trevor Lawrence had a great year. Best year I think he's had of his career. Shout out to him at number 4. Getting into the top 3 here. Different ball game. Number 3, Matthew Stafford, 350.38 fantasy points. And he was the passing leader this year. Most passing yards. I do want to say he's not my MVP. He is not my MVP. Now, this year, there wasn't really an MVP. There wasn't really one player we're going, oh my gosh, like that player's just having a breakout year. If anything, I think Jetson Smith-Njigba is on everyone's radar. And, we'll mention wide receivers in a minute. But, good stuff for Stafford. He's in the MVP race. I'll say he's a lot of people's favorite. It's just also with being how old he is, I would not be mad if you gave it to him. But in terms of fantasy, great year from him. Very consistent. A lot of big games. Good work. Now, my MVP, he's the number 2 fantasy quarterback. 351.96 fantasy points. There were only a select few that could get into the 300 categories, and this is one of those gentlemen. Drake May, great year for Drake May, one of the best sophomore seasons I have ever seen from a quarterback. And shout out to Drake May and Caleb Williams, both having great sophomore years. Shout out to Bo Nix as well. Just amazing work for the fellas. Just amazing work. And, Patriots, number 2 seed, but they are just as good as the Seahawks and the Broncos in terms of record. Might even be better, but great work for Drake May. Excited to see what he does in round 1. He's a killer. But there can only be one. There can only be one number 2B in the fantasy race, and it is no shocker. Like, legit, it's literally no shocker. One shocker is Lamar Jackson missing, but that's just because he had an awful year with the Ravens and was injured. But Josh Allen, 364.62 fantasy points. Just crazy. Just crazy. I mean, he had I think it's the 5th most out of everyone this year. In terms of all fantasy players, Josh Allen had the 5th most. Dude's an animal. Does it himself, runs it, throws it, takes on games, and he's in for a big showdown with Trevor Lawrence. And man, in terms of fantasy this year, great work for Josh Allen. And he has Haley Steinfeld. My man is winning in all aspects of life. Now, with quarterbacks out the way, let's discuss another key element of everyone's team, and that is the defenses. Because defenses this year, very interesting. I want to shout out number 10 Saints, 123 fantasy points. The Saints might have had more fantasy points than your favorite player, but for being a awful team, and I think they actually exceeded expectations this year. I think they were supposed to be the worst team this year. And, when we're looking at every defense, Browns are always good. Browns always have a good defense despite having an awful offense. That's a commonality. But the Saints, with all the ups and downs they had, really want to give a shout out to the Saints, 123 fantasy points. At number 9, the Rams, 125. I would expect a team that's finishing, in the number 5 seed to having good defense. And Rams exactly had that. A lot of bad games, a lot of good games, bit of a mix, but they had 125 fantasy points. At number 8, we have the Eagles, 126. Like I said, Eagles defense, always good. And the Eagles defense, I think, are one of the real reasons they are where they are. Offense is still stacked. I mean, we love the Eagles offense, but their defense really pulling it together this year. 126 fantasy points. good work. Getting into number 7, my Vikings. That's right, 131, and nothing will beat the 1 week where we scored 32 of those. We had 32 points in 1 week. A lot of negatives, but in terms of this Vikings team, the defense carried them. We did not have a good offense this year. One of the worst offensive years I've seen from the Vikings, and we still managed to finish with a 9-8 record. So shout out our defense. I will miss you, Harrison Smith, if you are retiring or leaving potentially, but it was a good run while we had you. Getting into number 6, Patriots, 133. They're the number 2 seed in the AFC. I would hope you have a good defense, and all year they've had a great defense. Coming in number 5 is the Jags, 139 fantasy points. Surprising, they just kind of crept up here. I can't even really think of any heavy hitters off the top of my head, but I'm not really a defensive fan. I more so pay attention to offensive names, but hey, they're in the playoffs. It makes sense. And number 4 is the Browns, 143 fantasy points. This is a great defense. They've had a great defense. Myles Garrett, the greatest defensive player of all time, maybe? He may be up there, just set the sack record this year. Easily defensive player of the year. Browns, offense is always awful, but hey, that defense always does some pretty good things. With that, we jump into the top 3, and at number 3 is the Broncos, 144 fantasy points. When you're the number 1 team, I hope you have a good defense, and they do. They have a great defense. However, they are nowhere near our top 2, because our top 2 stand above the rest. Number 2, Texans at 173. That is right. Texans defense outscoring a lot of top players. In fact, the number 2 defense almost outscored the number 10, number 9, and number 8 tight ends. That's crazy. That is crazy if you ask me, but just excellent work from the Texans this year. They've gone on an absolute tear. They get into the playoffs with the number 5 seed. They have got to be a favorite this year. They've caught the steam, they've caught some momentum, and they're not slowing down. But the number 1 defense, easily one of the best defenses I've ever seen. 185 fantasy points, more than the bottom 3 tight ends, more than the top, out of every kicker, is what I'm trying to say. Out of every kicker, only 2 had more points than the 185 fantasy point season for the Seahawks. Wow. Legion of Boom back in action. Wow. There's a reason this is the number 1 team in the NFC. Their defense carries them so far, just so far. And I mean, most people sleep on defenses, but if you had the Seahawks, you were happy almost every week because they just run up points, they get touchdowns, and they're your number 1 fantasy football defense for 2025. Now let's get into a fun position. That is the wide receiver spot. The wide receiver spot, always boasting great talent. Now, this year was more of a running back year. If you had a good running back, your team was being led. But, wide receivers, if you stacked them well, you would have a good year. And coming in number 10, one of the biggest shockers I've seen when Marvin Harrison Jr. went down, he stepped up. Jacoby Brissett loved him. Whenever Kyler Murray was in, he loved him. But, really a real good connection with Jacoby Brissett. That's Michael Wilson from the Cardinals, 220.6 fantasy points. Just kind of exploded. Just 30 bomb, 29, 30 bomb, 29. I'm like, Michael Wilson, chill out. Great addition. Everyone kind of picked him up off of waivers. I didn't. I should have, because clearly he was good, and he finished as the number 10 fantasy wide receiver. Coming in number 9, Davante Adams, touchdown merchant this year, 222.9 fantasy points, and I swear he got a touchdown almost every single game this year. If you're in first and goal, second goal, third and goal, Matt Stafford is looking your way, and he's looking at Davante Adams. Great stuff for Davante Adams after he left Green Bay. He tried to find it with the Raiders, tried to find it with the Jets, finally has found his footing with the Rams, and I think a lot of people slept on him, didn't know if he would hit it off this year, and he had himself a fantastic year. And hey, they're in the playoffs. And number 8, Nico Collins, 226.2 fantasy points. Obviously, wide receiver 1 for the Texans. And it's not even close. He catches all the balls. He does the style. He gets it done. And yeah, CJ Stroud is always throwing this ball at Nico Collins. Coming in at number 7, Zay Flowers, 243.3 fantasy points. Ravens suck. Lamar Jackson sucked, but for some reason, Zay Flowers gets the number 7 spot for fantasy football wide receivers. I mean, 243.3 fantasy points kind of just crept up here. I don't even understand how he got up here, but shout out Zay Flowers. At number 6, Chris Olave, 268, caught fire late and didn't slow down. Actually led me to a fantasy football championship. Saints defense, good. Chris Olave, good. Rest of the Saints, so bad. But I mean, Olave, happy to see this after, having such a good rookie year, then kind of just going in and out of the motions. He had a great year this year, and despite the Saints not doing well, Chris Olave was a bright spot. Jumping into our top 5, George Pickens joins the Cowboys and has himself a tremendous rookie year. And I mean, he's not a rookie, but, his first year, I should say, with the Cowboys. 291.9 fantasy points. Dak Prescott's favorite target when he wasn't looking at CeeDee Lamb, and he looked George Pickens' way a lot. George Pickens had a lot of big runs this year, lot of deep catches for touchdowns. George Pickens, after leaving the Steelers, a completely different animal. Still a savage, still a YM, some will say, with a little ski mask looking at the TV, but he is an absolute golden boy for that team. And, shout out Dak Prescott and George Pickens, both making the top 10 for QBs and wide receivers, despite having everything else just go completely haywire for their team. And also, I find it crazy, we're going to mention another tight end who was on the Cowboys. Cowboys did have a good offensive team this year. They've had a bad defense, though, the last few years. Remember, ever since they had the number 1 defense in the league by far, they have just completely plummeted. I don't know what's going on. Get into our top 4. It's a whole different ball game. 313.6 fantasy points for Jamar Chase. You're not going to hear much from Joe Burrow. Not going to hear much from their defense. They only had 1 star wide receiver this year, and that was Jamar Chase. 313.6 fantasy points. That is expected from the former LSU Tiger. That is what he is held to at this point in his career. He is meant to be the number 1 guy, and I'm pretty sure he was the number 1 pick in a lot of people's leagues. Coming in at number 3 is Amon-Ra St. Brown, 324 fantasy points. Never really putting himself on the map. He had a lot of great performances, but I feel like with how many losses the Lions had, he kind of just got lost with the records in terms of people gassing him up. But he is a top 5 wide receiver in the league and getting the number 3 spot in fantasy football. I mean, clearly puts him in the top 3, it seems, at least for this year. At number 2, your wide receiver king this year. That is right, JSN, 359.9 fantasy points, the most wide receiver yards out of anyone. So many big touchdowns, so many big catches. I love you, Jackson Smith and Jigwell. I did not have the privilege of having you in many of my leagues, but I will not make that mistake again. I'm picking JSN up as soon as I can next year. I absolutely love him, which brings me to the number 1 fantasy wide receiver. And if this guy's at number 1 next year, I don't know what the rankings are about. But more points than any quarterback, more points than any defense, more points than any tight end, any kicker. And there were only there's only one other person ahead of this man, and that is Puka Nacua. Puka Nacua, 375 fantasy points, a PPR merchant. Catches the ball, gets the touchdowns, runs the ball. Puka Nacua, 375, smack on the dot. I absolutely love it, dude. He is so talented. He's so bright, and I'm so excited to see him in the playoffs. I mean, crazy enough, we haven't even gotten to running backs, but just so you're aware, a QB, a wide receiver, and a defense, all for the Rams, all in the top 10. Just nutty. We'll touch on kickers real quick here. Harrison Butker for the Chiefs coming in at 144. Good stuff for him. Number 9, Jesse Bates, 145 from the Lions. Number 8 is Chris Boswell, 147. First playoff team we're seeing in our kickers. And number 7 is the Buccaneers' Chase McLaughlin, 151. Good work from him. Will Reichard, number 6, 158. Always love to see a Viking representing nowadays. So poor Justin Jefferson could not make the top 10 at wide receivers. Coming in at number 5 is Cam Little, another Jacksonville Jaguar. And hey, after he hit a 70-yarder in the preseason, people are like, yeah, we got to pay attention to this guy. Started off slow, but built momentum throughout the year. Ends at the number 5 spot. And number 4, Cameron Dicker, 106.7 for the Chargers. Good work for him. Chargers making the playoffs, and Cam Dicker has been a big reason for that. Coming in at number 3, my boy, Brandon Aubrey, 184.6. That's right. I've never seen a kicker get a decimal point, but for some reason, Brandon Aubrey was elected to run the ball to get a first down. 6 yards is all it took, and that's what he did. Sad he didn't win the crown as 2 men came in above Brandon Aubrey. These two men also had more points than the defenses. They also had more points than the bottom 3 tight ends. I got to give a shout out to Kai Fairbairn. Actually, my bad boys, they had more points than the top 8 tight ends, or the bottom 8 tight ends out of the top 10, however I'm phrasing that. Of the 8 tight ends we're going to bring up, Kai Fairbairn had more points, at least than 7. Someone had 8. I'm confusing myself, but Kai Fairbairn for the Texans, 190. He was a savage. And your king kicker, Jason Myers. I mean, come on. JSN, Seahawks defense, Jason Myers. This Seahawks team went ridiculous. Kind of surprised Sam Darnold didn't wind up in the top 10. I guess he didn't have necessarily. He had a great year from a quarterback perspective and as a captain of a team, but I guess in terms of fantasy, didn't really explode this year. We've been talking about tight ends so much, looking at our top 10 tight ends. Hunter Henry, 177.7. My favorite tight end, easily. He's just the biggest meme guy, I swear. Now, Brock Bowers is my favorite. He got injured so many times, just could not make the top 10. But Hunter Henry is good for either 20 points or 0 points. There's no in between. Maybe he'll get 1 catch. Maybe he'll get a touchdown and 5 catches. You never know with Hunter Henry. And number 9, Dalton Schultz, 178.8 for the Texans tight end. And number 8, Juwan Johnson, 179.9. Just always ripping off a 15 bomb, 17 bomb for the Saints. I love the something about the Saints team. I just like the players on their team. At number 7, Dallas Goedert, 185.1. At least we had another Eagle here, and it was Dallas Goedert. I guess he had a better year than Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown if he finished at number 7. And number 6, our first rookie that we can talk about out of legit everyone we've talked about, and it is Harold Fannin Jr. 186.4 fantasy points for the Browns tight end. What a good year for him. What a good pickup if you got him. I did have the privilege of having Harold Fannin on my team, and I absolutely loved him. Which brings me to number 5, Jake Ferguson, 188.1 fantasy points for the Cowboys tight end. He was the number 1 guy for a while and just faded late. You can only keep up the momentum for so long, but he was a touchdown machine for Dak Prescott, always feeding him, always giving him the ball. Jake Ferguson had himself a great year. And I can say this now, the best rookie, he might be offensive rookie of the year. I kid you not. Tyler Warren, 188.5 fantasy points. He faded late with all the QB changes, but for having a rookie year, we've kind of seen Sam Laporta. We've seen Brock Bowers. This year, Tyler Warren was our guy. Now, he wasn't number 1 like the other 2, but he was still up to par, and Tyler Warren had a great year with the Colts until they lost their last 8 games to end the year. You can't even make that up. At number 3, Travis Kelce, 193.8. Can you believe it? Travis Kelce, the number 3 fantasy tight end, kind of just low-key did that. Like Chiefs did nothing all year, but I guess Mahomes and Kelce were going crazy. I know when Rashee Rice was in, he was getting some points, but yeah, shout out Travis Kelce. Everyone clowning him, and he's the number 3 fantasy tight end. At number 2, the only man in the 200s, Kyle Pitts, 210.8 fantasy points. Wow, the breakout year for Kyle Pitts. It took some time. It took around 5 years, but Kyle Pitts finally had himself a great year. 210.8 fantasy points, a lot of big explosions. He was great. And you may be thinking, Zach, the only man in the 200s, but you said he's number 2 on the list. That is because this man had no equal. This man had no one even close to him. He's on the red team. He has red hair. He's Trey McBride. He had 315.9 fantasy points. He had more points than the 6 wide receivers on our list outside of the top, 7. 7 of the top wide receivers. He had more than Jamar Chase and George Pickens. That's all you need to know. That's all you need to know about that. More than any defense, more than any kicker. He had more fantasy points than the first 5 running backs I'm going to give you on our top 10 list. Trey McBride, you were on an awful team. The Cardinals were awful, but you were a shining star. And honestly, I think I got to draft you next year, dude. I don't know if Brock Bowers is going to be having a good quarterback again, so I may have to pick you up because Trey McBride is an absolute baller. Absolutely love it. Which brings us to our top 10 running backs for fantasy football, and I'll wrap it up here. Travis Etienne, 253.9. Great year for Travis Etienne. I thought Tank Bigsby would take over, and I drafted him ahead of Travis Etienne. It's funny to look back at the offseason and at how dumb my drafting skills were. At number 9, Kyren Williams, 293.3. You got a top 10 defense. You got a top 10 running back. You got two top 10 wide receivers. You got a top 10 quarterback. This Rams team is loaded top to bottom. I don't know if anything will replicate his rookie year, but still a great year for Kyren Williams because you got to watch out for Blake Corum sneaking up on you. And number 8, King Derrick Henry, 279.5. Despite the woes of the Ravens, Derrick Henry had himself some good games this year. Actually, very pleasantly surprised with Derrick Henry. Good job to the King. You were doing good with the Ravens. I don't know how many more years of Derrick Henry we have left. Hopefully a couple. And number 7, Chase Brown, 282.6. This is probably like the exact spot I would have expected him to finish when we drafted and we made predictions early in the year. Chase Brown is the number 7 running back from the Bengals. Just makes sense. And I don't know why. Just something about him. Coming in at number 6 is your rushing leader, actually. 302.2 fantasy points. James Cook. That is right. Bills had themselves the rushing leader this year, and it's funny that yards alone don't win you the number 1 crown in fantasy football. James Cook had the most yardage, but, catch game, big runs, there's just a lot more into it. Getting touchdowns. He got a lot, but he comes in at number 5, and he is your rushing leader, though. Just to let you know. And number 5, though, getting into our top 5 here to wrap this up. Devin Achane, 322.8. For as woeful, as pitiful as just what is going on as the Dolphins were, Devin Achane, one of my favorite players to come off Texas A&M. He is just a 10 out of 10 player, and I love him. Dude had the most amazing rookie season I've ever seen. I mean, a lot of these guys on here, they've been killing it since their rookie years. Same goes for Devin Achane. Good in the pass, good in the catch, and good even when the Dolphins did bad. And number 4, Jonathan Taylor, 362.3 fantasy points. And, this man just has a tendency to start off red hot, just 30 points a game, and then just kind of cools off. And the same thing happened this year. He kind of cooled off. The entire Colts team cooled off. You got to remember, they started 8-2 and ended 8-9. That's all you need to know. And rough showing. Rough showing for JT to end off the year, but 362.3 fantasy points. When he was hot, he was a benefit for your team. And number 3 with 366.9, Jahmyr Gibbs, clearly taking over the backfield. With his usefulness in the pass catching, it just supersedes David Montgomery. And he's even becoming more of a, power back, I'd say. He's the total package. Jahmyr Gibbs, you're an absolute stud. And this Bama boy is still killing it on the Lions. And number 2, it is Bijan Robinson. He's actually the number 4 fantasy football player overall, 370.8 fantasy points. He was the number 1 running back coming off the boards at the start of the year, and it's clear to see why. He was great for a Falcons team, which just kind of struggled this year. Really did. Suffered some tough losses. Looking back, they did have some big wins, but going 8-9 couldn't get them into the playoffs. But Bijan Robinson cementing himself as a 10 out of 10 stud, which brings us to our fantasy GOAT, our fantasy king. He's done it again, just when you think he's not going to have a repeat year. He does it. CMC Christian McCaffrey, 416.6 fantasy points. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? Did you know Christian McCaffrey outscored the top 3 defenses combined? Oh my gosh, this guy is absolutely crazy. I wish that were true, actually. I think he has a little bit less than that by 40 points, but still, you get the gist of what I'm saying. Christian McCaffrey having himself a career year again. I mean, first ballot Hall of Famer, if you ask me. We just need to ring this boy. And I think the 49ers have a great shot this year. We'll have to see if I have them making it past round 1, though, when I do my predictions. But those are all the finishers for the top 10 in fantasy football. I always find it so fascinating coming back at the end of the year and seeing everyone and just seeing where everyone ended up because it's crazy. It really is, and the NFL season is still not over, but for fantasy football, it is over. As I've mentioned, I finished 3rd in 3 of my leagues. I won 1. I took 4th in another. And I'm pretty sure I placed like 13th in my big league. But I won my final game of the year. I could have taken 14th. I took lucky number 13. Or is that unlucky? I don't know. But that's enough of fantasy football for this episode. We will have our Week 18 predictions. Not Week 18, our wildcard predictions. After I give you my 2026 UFC predictions. Oh, man, I have been pumped to talk over this with you guys. This is exciting. This is exciting. Every year we go through and we try and predict who will have the biggest rise, the biggest fall, who will be champion on January 1st of 2027, December 31st, 2016, however you want to view it. And I've gone through. I've predicted who I think will be champion, who I think will have the biggest rise, and who I think will have the biggest fall off. And it was tough this year. It really was. We have so many stars, and we have so many people that are on the horizon where they made the jump from either unranked to ranked last year, from either bottom 15 to top 10, or they either fell out of the top 10, fell out of the top 15. So it was kind of tough to cherry pick who I think is going to have the biggest fall off and who is going to have the biggest rise. But I have my reasoning for each and every one of these fighters. We have a lot to go through, so strap in, listen to this UFC knowledge, because here are your official predictions for 2026. And after how good we did in 2024, we did not follow it up in 2025. We had a rough year predicting in terms of our earlier predictions, but in terms of making our actual picks, a career year. So we're going to hope that our actual fight predictions and event predictions transfer over to our individual predictions here. Let's jump right on into it. Kicking us off, we're in the women's strawweight division, and these are my predictions for the women's strawweight division in 2026. And right now, our champion is Mackenzie Dern. And you know what? I think Mackenzie Dern has a really good shot to end the year as champion, because as of right now, I thought she was going to be defending the belt against Tatiana Suarez. But as of the other day, we had a fight announcement from the great Big Marcel. Absolutely love Big Marcel, one of the best journalists out there breaking fights. And she actually has a fight booked against Lupi Godinez coming up here. And in terms of their rankings in the weight class, Tatiana Suarez is ranked number 2, Lupi Godinez is number 6, which leads me to believe Zhang Weili will be next in line for the belt. I think they're just going to throw her right back in the mix, put her right back in the heat, and give her another title shot. And in my opinion, I think Zhang Weili will be ending the year as champion. I'm going to be honest, once she fights Mackenzie Dern, I rock with her, and as I look through the rest of the field, a rematch with Tatiana Suarez, Virna Jandiroba, Yasmin Lucindo, Jillian Robertson, there's really no names that even come to mind who could stand in front of Zhang Weili. So I got Zhang Weili winning back her belt and ending the year as women's strawweight champion. Now, in terms of the biggest rise in the division, this was tough. This was tough because women's strawweight, there isn't really one set big contender. You're going to see that with a lot of these divisions. But I do have my eyes on this one female. Her name is Alexia Thanera. She's currently 13-1. She's 2-0 in the UFC. She debuted this past year, went 2-0 with a win over Molly McCann and a win over Loma Luke Boonmi. She is currently ranked right now at number 15, and as of the making of this podcast, she does not have a booked fight, but she's on a 11-fight winning streak. 11 of her 13 wins are by finish, and I think she's something special. I really do. I think, coming into the rankings at number 15 for the year and where she's going to end at the end of the year is going to be completely two different places. Because when I matchmake her climbing the rankings, I could say she takes on Jessica Andrade next, she beats her. They then have her face Yan Chaonin, I would favor her. So we're going to have to see what her ceiling is, because, it can always fluctuate. You could always think someone's going to be good and they end up being very mediocre. But from what I've seen of Alexa Thanera, I can get behind her. I like her. And as far as I'm concerned, she is only 30 years old. She's got a lot more time in her prime. So we're going to go with Alexa Thanera to have the biggest rise in 2025. And I should actually mark where they are currently ranked. That would probably be the smart decision. She's ranked at number 15. Now, in terms of the biggest fall off, I'm going to go with Amanda Lemos. I am going to go with Amanda Lemos. Now, Amanda Lemos is currently ranked at number 5 in the division, but I do have a reasoning. I do have a reasoning why I think Amanda Lemos is on the way down, and you may be surprised at this, as Amanda Lemos, as of the making of this, is only coming off a loss to Tatiana Suarez. But I will say, she is already 38 years old. She'll turn 39 in May, and I just don't know how much longer she has in terms of age. And that's just one of my reasonings there. She's also gone win-loss, her last 4 or 5 fights, and I just think, by the end of the year, she's going to drop out of the top 5, drop out of the top 10. And if they just, do some good matchups for her, they're definitely going to eliminate her as from being a top contender as the year go on. So I have Amanda Lemos at number 5, having to fall off this year, maybe even retiring coming up here. But she has a fight with Jillian Robertson. Jillian Robertson is ranked number 10. That's going to be a 50-50 fight, and I guess I'm going to have to lock in my prediction for that with those two square off coming up March 14th, that I'm picking Jillian Robertson, because if I had to pick Amanda Lemos, that wouldn't make much sense. So, Amanda Lemos to have the biggest fall off this upcoming year. Now, next up, we have the men's flyweight division. That's right, the lowest men's division here. And champion, we're going to save for last. Okay, because I'm going to go with biggest fall off here. And it's a, very easy one. I kind of hate going with the easy predictions here, but I have Alex Perez. Okay, and Alex Perez, I have no idea if he's in the UFC. He's 1-5 in his last 6. He hasn't won a fight since April of 2024. The one guy he's beat isn't even in the UFC, Matthias Nikalu. Does have a fight upcoming with Charles Johnson. He's currently ranked at number 11. I think with one loss, he's cut from the UFC. I think just the fact he is still in here, he still keeps getting top 15 fights, doesn't make sense to me. So I think Alex Perez has the biggest fall off. In terms of biggest fall off, that means falling far in the rankings or even getting cut. All right, that is what biggest fall off means. Or it can even be a Tom Aspinall's, situation where you just fall off in general despite never actually lost the fight. That's really how this works. So there isn't like a necessary criteria, but he's currently ranked at number 11, and by year's end, I have him outside the rankings, dare I say outside of the company. In terms of the biggest rise, this was tricky. It was very tricky to choose the biggest rise in the men's flyweight division. Because when I look at some potential people, Loner, Kavanaugh, a couple of guys coming off of Davis Contender Series, I don't see them making the jump this year. I don't. So who I've elected to go with is the number 8 ranked Kyoichi Horiguchi, the UFC vet who returned against Tagir Lembekov and finished him in round number 3. And he has a big fight coming up here to kick off the year, February 7th, as he takes on the number 6 ranked Amir Al-Bazzi. And I think this guy is, dare I say, 1 to 2 fights away from a title fight. So keep your ears open for Kyoichi Horiguchi. I truly believe he's special. I truly believe he's a good talent. And it's just going to be a matter of time before we're able to see him in a prolific fight. But in terms of his UFC career, this man has only lost once under the UFC banner. That was back in 2015 when he lost to Demetrius Johnson. Other than that, he's an absolute legend out in Rizin, out in the One Championship, in those Asian promotions. Watch out for Kyoichi Horiguchi. This year, he's ranked at number 8. I predict he will be top 3, or maybe even get a title shot by year's end. Which brings me to who I think will end the year's champion. And this one, it's tricky, because we have multiple players in the mix. We have your new champion, Joshua Van, who's fresh. He's ready. We should be getting a title defense from him soon. And then we have Tetsuro Taira and Manel Kape, who are both worthy challengers. Both are coming off of knockouts of former title challengers in Brandon Moreno and Brandon Royval, respectively. And I think it's just a matter of who gets the shot first. But I'm going to tell you what. I think Manel Kape is better than Tetsuro Taira and Joshua Van. I do. I think Alexander Pantoja beats everyone when he doesn't get injured. That's what I believe. But I don't know if we see Alexander Pantoja this year. I don't know how serious his injury is. I really don't, especially if he comes back. Will he still be the 100% fighter we expected before? I don't know. So my bold prediction is whether he fights first for it or whether he fights second, Manel Kape ends 2026 as your new UFC champion. And right now, he's number 2. Right now, he's the number 2 guy in the men's flyweight division, but I have him ending the year as champion. I think he beats Joshua Van. I think he beats Tetsuro Taira, and I say that as a fan of both of them. So, my bold prediction, second new champion of the year, Manel Kape, to become the new men's flyweight champion. As for women's flyweight, I'll keep it simple. It's not exciting, Valentina Shevchenko. It's either Valentina Shevchenko fights out the year or she retires. There really isn't an in-between. She's kind of done it all. She really has. And, I can see a couple options with Valentina Shevchenko. I can see her vacating the belt. I can see her defending against Natalia Silva. I think it all just comes down to her current drive if she wants to continue fighting for the belt. But throw anyone you want at her. I'm picking Valentina Shevchenko, especially after her year in 2020. where she was basically the women's fighter of the year. I think we gave it to Kayla Harrison, but Valentina Shevchenko really should be up there. Great work from her, and I am excited to see what fights they give her as we get into 2026. For biggest fall off, we're picking her again, Hakwayel Penning, or no, not Hakwa Penting, Rose Namajunas. Rose Namajunas this year, I forgot I had swapped them around, but Rose Namajunas, I don't think is going to be in for a good year. I think Rose Namajunas is entering the later stages of her career. You know, she was able to beat Miranda Maverick. She's got a fight booked against Natalia Silva. I do not have her beating Natalia Silva. Let me just tell you that. I do not see a world that happens. If it does, I'm generally going to be sad because she's just not wowed me. She hasn't impressed me. She's currently ranked at number 6, and I just think her time is up. Her time is up. You know, she is 33 years old. She's done everything she needs to, but she's just been in some boring fights. Her last exciting fight was 2021. All right, that's all you need to know about that. And she actually has put on the worst UFC fight of all time against Carla Esparza back at UFC 274. Since then, it's kind of been, you know, loses to Mandan, beats Amanda Ribas and Tracy Cortez, loses to Erin Blanchfield, beats Miranda Maverick. Nothing too impressive. I think Rose Namajunas has a down year, and you would consider her having a fall off. Which brings me to the biggest rise in the women's flyweight division, and I'm going to give that honor to the currently ranked number 12 fighter, Wang Kong. I'm a big Wang Kong fan. I really am. You know, Wang Kong, I rock with her. I like her. And, you know, when you are coming in with 4 of your 8 wins by finish, with your only real loss being a upset, if you ask me, and she's been on a tear since then. So you really got to put some respect on Wang Kong's name, currently ranked at number 12. You know, as we look at her 2025, it was a great bounce back year. Defeats Bruna Brazil, defeats Ariana De Silva, goes 2-0, and she's looking dominant. So keep your eyes peeled for Wang Kong. She's currently got a fight scheduled with Eduarda Mora. Now, let me just make sure that's not at women's bantamweight. Okay, that's at women's flyweight. I was a little worried there, but Edward Mora is actually ranked below her at 13, so he may be testing the waters to see her abilities. But I think Wang Kong picks up a win here, gets another top 10 opponent later in the year, and has a big rise. She is one of the final hopes for the Chinese fighter scene, because without Zhang Wei Li, there isn't many other women that are killing it in terms of the, Chinese fighters. I guess Yan Xiaonan was doing good, but other than that, not too many. Jumping into the men's bantamweight division. Yeah, we're getting bold here as well. First up, biggest fall off, and it doesn't make me happy to say this. Let me just start off by saying this. I don't have, happiness saying this guy's going to have the biggest fall off of the year, but I just think with age, I think with the opponents he's going to be facing, I think the number 6 ranked Devison Figueiredo falls off this year. It's probably time. It's just probably time that he finally, starts to decline. And it comes from the fact that he is 38 years old. That doesn't help. I'll just be honest. And, he's 1-2 in his last 3. A Lamontel Jackson win was kind of dull. And, of course, he lost to Corey Sandhagen, lost to Pierre Yan. These are top guys. But he's taking on Umar Nurmagomedov. And I do not see a world where Umar Nurmagomedov is going to, lose to Devison Figueiredo. And what's next after Umar Nurmagomedov? Well, you're looking at Amin Zahabi, Mario Batista Oliveira, whoever wins that. You're looking at a David Martinez, Peyton Talbot. It doesn't get easier, and it won't get easier. And I think Devison Figueiredo begins to kind of fall off, and he does not have the best 2026. Now, in terms of the biggest rise, this is one of my favorite predictions. We're getting more risky this year. Last year, we didn't really predict anyone who wasn't already ranked in the top 15, but this year we are. And that's because we are going with the older brother of the great Ilia Topuria, and that is Alexander Topuria. That is right, Alexander Topuria, who, by the way, coming in is 2-0 in the UFC, both wins in 2025, and he's unranked. He is unranked. I don't even think he has a fight booked, if I'm not mistaken. He has no fight booked as of right now, but he's unranked. And I just think from what I've seen, this guy can hang. This guy can really hang with some of the heavy hitters. I mean, his 2 wins over Belkazat Alkmakan and Colby Thickness, he just looked dominant. He just looked in control. And I almost feel like he's holding back a bit. I really feel like he can finish these fights, if you ask me. So I'm ready to throw him in there against Kyler Phillips, Montel Jackson, dare I say, a Marlon Vera. That's how high I think he could go at number 8. But he's currently unranked, and I'm ready to see him climb the rankings as 2026 gets rolling. And as for your champion, of course, it's going to be Petr Yan, right? Petr Yan defeated Merab Dvalishvili, and if Merab gets a win, he's going to fight back. No. I don't think Merab Dvalishvili fights again for the belt in 2026. I don't think so. And I'll tell you who I do think is going to fight for the belt. I think they're going to have Sean O'Malley, if he defeats Song Yadong, fight Petr Yan. Okay? And I think the winner of Sean O'Malley versus Petr Yan, when that happens in the summer, is going to have one more title fight later in the year. And it's going to be against Umar Nurmagomedov, who defeats Deiveson Figueiredo. And I think Umar Nurmagomedov beats both of those guys, whether it be Petr Yan, whether it be Sean O'Malley. But I think that the number 2 ranked Umar Nurmagomedov, we're running our prediction back. We did it last year. He did win it, but I have Umar Nurmagomedov ending 2026 as your new men's bantamweight champion. That's right. I think he can do it. I really do. After the Mario Bautista fight, this dude is so good. I think he truly is as good as people think Khabib gasses him up to be. And I think he defeats Corey Sandhagen. Not Corey Sandhagen, but he would defeat Corey Sandhagen again if they rematch. But he defeats Sean O'Malley and Petr Yan. Whoever is champion, according to how my predictions are going to go, Sean O'Malley defeats Song Yadong. Sean O'Malley fights Petr Yan. Winner fights Umar after he beats Deiveson Figueiredo. That's what I think takes place. And honestly, I'm very happy with that prediction. A men's bantamweight into women's bantamweight. Your women's bantamweight champion, Kayla Harrison. I truly think it. And I think even if we run into the unfortunate scenario where Amanda Nunes does defeat Kayla Harrison, they're just going to give Kayla Harrison another title shot. And Kayla Harrison defeats Hakra Penton, Julia Pengan, Norma Dumont, Caitlin Vera, Yassinos, Ariel Dawn, Macy Chiasson, Ellie Perez, Carol Rose, Jacqueline Cavalcante. That's the top 10 women's bantamweight. The only woman who can beat Kayla Harrison is Amanda Nunes, and I honestly am not going to be picking Amanda Nunes to win that. So your current champion, Kayla Harrison, I think could even pull like an Alex Barra, where it loses the belt start of the year and wins the back end of the year. I think Kayla Harrison, no matter what, if she's getting a title shot, she's coming out victorious. So Kayla Harrison, my prediction to end the year as champion. Now, in terms of biggest fall off, I accidentally said her name earlier, but Hakra Penton. We're predicting her again. She's ranked at number 2, didn't have a single fight in 2025, and she didn't move. She didn't change from her ranking at number 2, so there was nothing I could really do with that. But Hakra Penton is just, she's even on the women's pound for pound somehow. She just isn't exciting. And she's been inactive. She hasn't fought since October of 2024. What are you doing even? How is she still in the UFC? It makes no sense to me. I don't know if she's prepping for a comeback or something, but let's not act like she isn't 37 years old. Oh my goodness. How is she still in the UFC? Hakra Penton, they need to have her fight an up-and-comer, or they just need to cut her. And I really hope by the end of the year, everyone realizes that she needs to get the boot, because he's currently ranked number 2 and shouldn't be. In terms of the biggest rise, kind of tricky, because I said Aileen Perez last year, but, someone who's ranked number 8, I just don't feel like you can have the biggest rise, as compared to someone else. So who we've elected to go with is currently ranked, in the top 10, but they are primed to try and make it big this year. The number 10 ranked Jacqueline Cavalcante is who I think is going to have the biggest rise this year. Currently on an 8-fight winning streak. She's been pretty good so far in her UFC run, and I've liked what I've seen from her. I really have. And in terms of women's bantamweight, it is, not the deepest, but she's came in since coming into the UFC in 2023, gone 5-0. She went 2-0 in 2025, wins over Julia Avila and Mayra Bueno Silva. And I think when we give her an opportunity, maybe against Liana Santos, Caitlin Vera, Macy Chiasson, she's going to capitalize. And she's ranked at number 10 right now. And I predict by end of the year, she has a great run. Now, moving on to men's featherweight, because this is where things get fun. From featherweight to heavyweight, things get interesting. So at men's featherweight, right now we have our title matchup between, of course, Volkanovski and Diego Lopez. And after how the first fight went, it should be an obvious prediction for Volkanovski, but I can't. I can't do it, guys. I just can't bring myself to pick Volk with his age, with the fact he only had one fight. I think Diego Lopez has learned. I think Diego Lopez brings a certain power. And I think Diego Lopez ends the year as your new men's featherweight champion. And you may be thinking, oh, okay, if he gets past Volk, he still has the winner of Leron Murphy and Mosfar Evlov. I think Diego Lopez beats them all. I think no matter how chaotic his style is, how rambunctious he is, he's going to do it. I think Diego Lopez is going to do it. I think he's going to not only win the belt, but dare I say defend it. That is right. That's how high I am on Diego Lopez. And also get this, if Volk beats him, and let's say, Volk pulls out or something, like Diego Lopez likes to stay active. I could even see him losing to Volk again, having another fight, stepping on short notice later in the year, and we try and get a third fight booked for the title, and he wins it again. All right, I think Diego Lopez ends the year as champion, new men's featherweight champion. I love it. Biggest rise was kind of tough. There's a lot of guys to pick from, but as I'm looking at a lot of guys, Yusuf Zalal, Steve Garcia, Gene Silva, they're all in the top 10. So I don't really want to pick them. There's a couple unranked guys, but there's one guy I got my eyes on. It's Kevin Vallejos at number 13, the guy, of course, who knocked out Giga Chikadze to end the year. Dude's an absolute animal. Okay, 14 of his 16 wins are by finish. He is young. He is hungry. He was my Rookie of the Year runner-up, I believe. I think I put him behind Quinlan Sakyad just due to the style of knockouts Quinlan Sakyad got. Which, by the way, they are not giving him a high-level opponent in his next contest. But Kevin Vallejos, ranked at number 13. Give this guy to Brian Ortega. Give him to Josh Emmett. Give him to Arnold Allen. This guy is winning all those matchups, and he's jumping into the top 10. Dare I say the top 5? Kevin Vallejos, I see a lot of potential with him. Currently ranked number 13. He'll have a big year. Who do I think is going to have a fall-off this year? Well, none other than Yair Rodriguez. I'm not a Yair Rodriguez fan whatsoever. The dude has one win since 2022, and it is over Patricio Pitbull. Are you kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me? How has this guy finessed his way this far? I generally don't know how he's made it this far, but he's calling for title shots. He's ranked at number 3 currently, and there's just no way he remains ranked at number 3. If he fights Aljamain Sterling, give me Aljamain Sterling. If he fights Yusuf Zalal, Steve Garcia, Gene Silva, I'm picking anyone against Yair Rodriguez. It is slim and few who I would pick Yair Rodriguez not to beat. And to even make matters on top of that, he didn't even look that impressive against Patricio Pitbull. It almost looked like Pitbull was just having an off day. It really did. Yair's 33. I think his time should be over, and, I'm just done. I'm just done with Yair Rodriguez. How is he still ranked number 3? The dude has one win in the last 3 years, and it's over a guy who was making his UFC debut who was even older than him. So, Yair Rodriguez, enjoy your fall off in 2026 because we got bigger names coming to splash and make an impact. Next up, men's lightweight division. You're not going to like this. I don't even know if I like it, but Ilia Topuria. Look, whoever wins between Gaethje and Paddy Pimblett, I especially think if Gaethje wins, Ilia Topuria is knocking him out. And I think for Paddy, I do believe Paddy Pimblett has a better ground game than Ilia Topuria, but he just has knockout power like I've never seen before. I would love to say the fact that he's only fought once this past year, is going to hurt him, but let's not act like he's knocked out Max Holloway, Volkanovski, and Oliveira in his last 3 fights. We have to put a little respect on Ilia Topuria, and with his current slate, with his current, agenda, we might only get one fight with him this year, and I think if that one fight happens, he's going to win it. So, Ilia Topuria still remaining champion. He's just too good to pick against, and you know what? We'll hope he does again. Because I'm a big Ilia Topuria fan. I will be rooting for him, and we'll see how it goes. Now, for biggest rise, this one's fun. This one I'm very happy about. Fairs Zayev. Fairs Zayev is currently ranked number 15. Some of you casuals may be unfamiliar with his game, but he is coming out of Paris, France, and he's been on a tear. Let me just tell you, 6 straight wins dating back to 2022. He went 2-0 in 2025 with an incredible performance against Nazim Sadykhov. I mean, utterly dismantled him and knocked him out. All right, 11 of his 18 wins are by finish. 5 of his knockouts have came in round number 1, and this dude's an absolute animal, and he is primed for a big year. I really believe it. I think they're going to stylistically give him some matchups, maybe against Beneil Dariush, maybe against Hafel Fiziev, maybe against, dare I say, Renato Moicano. They are going to have him try and climb the rankings, and I'm excited to see what they do with him. But fair as I am, he is currently ranked at number 15, and I think by year's end, he is going to be in the top 10 for men's lightweight. Now, for biggest fall off, it's tricky. It's tricky. I think Gaethje's an obvious pick, but even if Gaethje loses and retires, like it's not a fall off. Like there's just certain fall offs you can't consider fall offs. That'd be like considering Dustin Poirier falling off. No, not the case. There are a couple good picks. Dan Hooker, Mateusz Gamrot. I can see them losing some fights. Dare I say Charles Oliveira going 0-2 this year potentially. But I went with Renato Moicano. He's ranked at number 10. He's fighting Brian Ortega. He might win that. But other than that, there is really no one I'm picking him to beat, especially knowing that he lost to Beneil Dariush. Like, Renato Moicano's time is probably up in the UFC. He's also getting up there in age, in his late 30s. I just don't really know what's left for him. He was able to get a title shot last year, pulled the old Jorge Masvidal, was able to get it under special circumstances, and I just don't see a way back to the top for him. So, unfortunately, I do think Money Moicano has himself a downer year and doesn't pick up a win. And if he does pick up a win against Brian Ortega, a guy who's not even naturally fighting in lightweight, he's then going to take on a lightweight and get finished. That's just my opinion and what I think. Now, moving to welterweight, because this one's even crazier. All right, we'll start with the biggest fall-off here. We'll start with the negatives into the positive. Biggest fall-off, Belal Muhammad. Belal Muhammad is currently ranked at number 5, and they are just going to throw killers at him. Okay, they're going to throw maybe Carlos Prates. I'm picking Carlos. They're going to throw Joaquin Buckley. I'm picking Joaquin Buckley. They're going to throw Kamaru Usman. I'm going to go Usman. Gabriel Bonfim, other killers coming up the ranks. I'm going everyone against Belal Muhammad. I just think Belal's time is done. Belal had a good run. I think everyone slept on him, and then when we didn't sleep on him, he lost. That's just how Belal is, but he had a rough year. You could even say he fell off last year. Loses his belt, loses to Ian Gary. Nothing too impressive. So we're going to have to see how he does, because as of right now, none of his wins have aged well. The Leon Edwards win did not age well. Gilbert Burns win did not age well. Sean Brady win, it didn't end up aging well. It looked like it was going to age well, but didn't. Vicente Luque, Wonderboy Thompson, Damian Maia, just been a while. And, I'm sorry to Belal Muhammad. I hate to be a hater, but, you went 0-2 in 2025. And I just don't see you winning at all in 2026 and having a fall-off year. Now, for biggest rise, it was tricky. It was so tricky because we kind of have everyone up there. Gabriel Bonfim at 11, Joaquin Buckley at 10, Carlos Prates at 6, Michael Morales at 4, Jack Del Molina's up there at 1 even got Sean Brady's in there at number 7. Got a lot of guys in the top 10. So we had to look outside of the top 10. That's right. We found ourselves an unranked fighter. And that unranked fighter's name, I don't know if you've heard of him, is Sam Patterson. Sam Patterson is from the great country of England. The United Kingdom is where he is from. And he is currently 29 years old. He'll turn 30 in April. And he's currently on a 4-fight winning streak. All of those wins are coming in round number 1. He went 2-0 in 2025 with 2 3-minute knockouts, both in round number 1, as you would get from that gist. And I think they're going to give him a shot. I really think they do. He's unranked right now. He's looked very good against everyone they've thrown him against. I mean, his submission and knockout power both just work hand in hand. And when I look at welterweight, Daniel Rodriguez, Colby Covington, Jeff Neal, Gilbert Burns, they're going to try and break guys in. Now, I think Sam Patterson's going to find some way to get ranked by the end of the year, maybe get a big finish as well. I wanted to pick someone who is so niche that if we actually nail this, we would look like we have the most knowledge in the world about the UFC. So Sam Patterson is who I'm going to predict to have the biggest rise for welterweight in 2026. It's a very bold prediction, let me just tell you that. Now, in terms of our champion, I think it's even more bold. I really do, because this is someone I just don't think is on people's radar. I just really don't. From everything I've seen, size, power, takedown, defense, I have really good faith that by the end of 2026, is probably going to blow your guys' minds, Michael Morales is your new men's welterweight champion. This guy is 19-0. He's won his last 3 fights by round 1 knockout. He went 2-0 in 2025 with 2 performance of the night round 1 knockouts. This kid is getting better and better by the day. I mean, he is 26 years old and he is 19-0. The amount of potential with him is insane. As of right now, he's ranked at number 4. Number 4 in the rankings. But when I look at the options there, Jack Del Molina, Shavkat Rakhmonov, Ian Gary, okay? Michael Morales is going to fight up. And I think if he fights Islam Makhachev, I would pick Michael Morales. I think the knockout power just brings such a different aspect to his game. So, Michael Morales, it's bold. We went super bold with our welterweight predictions here. You got to shoot for the moon, and if you miss, you get to go with the stars. And that's how we're going to go here. I got Michael Morales ending the year as the new men's welterweight champion. I mean, come on. I like to look at this year. Who'd have thought JDM was going to win the belt? Then Islam. Who'd have thought Joshua Van was going to win the belt? Who'd have thought Petr Yan was going to work his way back to a title fight? Alex Pereira was going to lose and win his belt back. A lot happens that we don't see happening, and that's why we have to predict the unpredictable. All right, final 3 weight classes here. Middleweight, Khamzat. Khamzat remains champion. I mean, unless he moves up and vacates, who's beating him? Is Dricus Du Plessis going to beat him in a rematch? Nasruddin Imavov, Anthony Hernandez, Israel Adesanya. I'm joking about that. But, yeah, I think Khamzat mauls everyone. I think a real tell is going to be about Nasruddin Imavov when they fight. Because if he mauls Nasruddin, he's going to move up to light heavyweight. And I think this is the only opportunity you're going to see someone move up this year. So Khamzat could be fighting for the light heavyweight belt. I'm going to work under the impression something else takes place. But I do think Khamzat remains middleweight champion as long as he doesn't move up. If he moves up, well, I'm screwed, but I'm going to go under the assumption he does not. Now, in terms of biggest rise, I think year number 2, or you could honestly say year number 3 of Joe Pyfer trying to move up the rankings, this is finally the year. He's ranked at number 15. He's finally going to get an opportunity to move up again, and he's not going to squander it this time. All right, after having himself a good year, I know he was able to pick up the big win over Abus Magomedov, obviously the dud against Calvin Gastelum, but he's ranked at number 15. And, I like rematches with Roman Dolidze. I like a Jared Cannonier fight. I like a MVP, Robert Whittaker, Rainer Day Ritter fight I really like. I think there's a lot of potential with Joe Pyfer. And being ranked at number 15, I think he can get into the top 10. All right, he could even cherry pick a fight with Brendan Allen at 5, and I would like Joe Pyfer's odds. I really do. We forget about his knockout power with his ability to use his takedowns over his last few fights, but I like Joe Pyfer. He's ranked number 15. I think he has a big year. Now, who's going to fall off at middleweight? Adesanya, I already picked him. He's ranked at number 6. I don't think it's fair to pick him. I'll tell you who it is fair to pick. The number 3 guy, Sean Strickland. I don't think Sean Strickland wins a fight in 2026. I really don't, because I think Anthony Hernandez grapples him to death and submits him. That's what I think happens. I don't think Sean Strickland has fought someone who's constantly attacking the takedowns like Anthony Hernandez does. He loses that. Who's next? Who is next? If it ends up being the winner of Kyle Burrell and Rainer Day Ritter, I like Sean Strickland over Rainer Day Ritter. But if it's someone else, if it's a Gregor Rodriguez, Joe Pyfer climbing the rankings, if it's a Rainer Day Ritter that actually looks good, I might pick them. But I just don't see Sean Strickland having success this year. He had a terrible 2025. One fight, gets brutally beat up, loses every round, then proceeds to get suspended for jumping in the cage and punching a fighter. Dude's a clown, and he's ranked at number 3, and I think he has a fall off in 2026. Moving up to light heavyweight, your biggest fall off, and this one pains me. I got Jan Blachowicz, and Jan Blachowicz is ranked at number 5. All right, and that's the main reason we are going with Jan Blachowicz. And, I just think Father Time has crept up. I think it's time for him to call it quits. When you're 42 years old and haven't won a fight since 2021, it may be time to call it quits. And I love Jan Blachowicz, I really do, but I don't know what he's fighting for. I really don't. I think if anything, he had a great run. He had a draw against the number 10 guy. So what's next? I get the vibe. Azamat Murzakanov at 6. They could always throw him a bone with a Volkan Ozdemir at 8. But Jan Blachowicz, I think it's time to call it quits. You've had a great run. And if he does end up fighting, I don't know if I'm going to pick him to win. So we're going to say Jan Blachowicz, unfortunately, has a fall-off in 2026. This is one of the few predictions I hope doesn't come true, but I am actually still going to make it. Now, biggest rise at light heavyweight. Have you heard of this guy called Modestas Bukauskas? Well, he's currently unranked. He currently has a fight lined up with the number 13th ranked Nikita Krylov. And if you didn't know, I'm very high on Modestas. I don't know why I like him. I've always liked him, even when he was, first run with the UFC, where he just didn't do well. Because he had a run in 2021 where he went 1-3 in the UFC. Comes back 2023, goes 2-1, decent, but from 2024 on has looked great, and he was one of the few fighters to pick up 3 wins in 2025, including 2 round 1 knockouts. He was actually the man who retired the great Paul Craig. And he's got a fight coming up with Nikita Krylov. I think he wins that. I think they stylistically match him up with someone like Dominic Reyes or someone like Jamal Hill. He wins those fights too. And I think Modestas Bukauskas has himself an amazing 2026. Keep his name on your radar. Now, for our champion. We've picked a lot of new champions. We've gone with Zhang Weili winning the belt back. Manel Cape, Umar Nurmagomedov, Diego Lopez, Michael Morales, all becoming new champions. I think this is the year of one of, if not my favorite fighters, winning his belt back, the number 1 ranked Jiri Prochazka. That is right. That is right. You may be like, oh my gosh, he's going to dethrone Alex Pereira. Quite the contrary. Jiri Prochazka has a fight coming up with Carlos Ulberg. All right. I, would really like Carlos Ulberg there, but something about Jiri, it only appears as kryptonite is Alex Pereira. I think Alex Pereira is moving up to heavyweight. I don't know if he's going to get an immediate fight against Cyril Gane or immediate fight against Tom Aspinall, but I think he's moving up to heavyweight and is done with light heavyweight. And I think Jiri Prochazka versus Carlos Ulberg is kind of going to be the fight for the undisputed, the vacated light heavyweight championship. I know as of right now, it's just being rumored as a normal fight, but I think Jiri Prochazka, especially, let's say Alex Pereira moves up. I mean, who's next for him? He fights Magomed Ankalaev. I'm picking Jiri Prochazka to win that fight. And I love Jiri. We've been making bold predictions, and especially if he were to win the belt back this year, it would be so legendary. So, Jiri Prochazka wins back his belt by some means. If Alex Pereira still holds the belt, I will be very, very shocked. If he doesn't move up, it's just time to do it, man. Time to do it. No better time than the present. Which brings us to our final weight class, ladies and gentlemen, heavyweight. Heavyweight, and your biggest fall off, I'm going with Sergey Spivak. Sergey Spivak just has kind of been on a downward trend as of late. He's currently ranked at number 7. Had a couple fights he pulled out of in this past year, and of course the loss to Halton Almeida wasn't the most pretty. The loss to Walter Cortez Acosta, he just looked so standoffish, if you will, and his last win was Marcin Tybura in 2024. Okay, nothing too impressive. Has a fight coming up with Ante Delege in Houston, and I think he's going to get knocked out in that contest. And then from there, you're looking at Talishon Teixeira, Shamil Gaziev, Walter Walkers of the world. Yeah, Sergey Spivak going to have a downward year. Now, who's going to have a upward year? One may ask, well, it's that name you might have just heard me say. He actually had the submission of the year because he had 3 of the same submission in the same year. The great, the legendary Walter Walker. Love him. Love Walter Walker so much. He's currently ranked at number 14. He's trying to make heavyweight great again. Let me tell you that. He is the single-handed reason the heavyweight division can remain relevant. Give him higher-ranked opponents. Okay, give Walter Walker a Marcin Tybura. Give him a Sergey Spivak. Jump him into the top 10. Get him main events. Walter Walker is so entertaining, and the fact he keeps getting heel hooks is killing me. 4 straight wins by round 1 heel hook, all in a minute. I mean, just nutty. Just absolutely nutty. And he had 3 in 2025. He won submission of the year by getting 3 separate submissions, all in the same time period, all with the same moves. So, Walter Walker, biggest rise. That is who I'm rooting for in 2026. Now, who will end the year as champion? I'm going to be kind of boring here. I think Tom Aspinall. And that's with him not even maybe fighting due to this injury. I don't know if Alex Pereira moves up and he has an interim fight against Cyril Gane. I don't know if they have Cyril Gane and Alexander Volkov have an interim fight, but Tom Aspinall has no return date. And we have out till March booked. And as of right now, I don't know when Tom Aspinall is returning. And I do think if he does fight Cyril Gane, he'll defeat him again. I honestly would probably pick him against Alex Pereira, to be honest. And I just think in general, Tom Aspinall, I'm not giving up on him. All right, I know he had a rough going at UFC 321, but come on. Are we really going to judge him on one bad performance? I hope not. So I think Tom Aspinall is still your champion by the end of the new year. And yeah. With that, we have 11 champions, and it appears I have only predicted 5 of them to retain. I've only predicted 5 of them to retain. Very interesting. I have 6 new champions in the coming year. I really love my Manel Cape, Umar Nurmagomedov, Diego Lopez, and Michael Morales picks. Jerry Petrosky as well. I love all my new title picks except Shaq Whaley because that's one of the most obvious ones. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, 2026 is going to bring us a lot of fun changes, a lot of excitement, and those are my predictions on what I think is going to take place in 2026. But we have a couple last things to do to wrap up this episode, and that is none other than your NFL wildcard weekend predictions. Now, I could do the full playoffs, but I'm just going to do round by round. Just for right now, I guess I probably should do my full predictions afterwards, just to, we'll just see how we do predicting from here on out. But yeah, for right now, we'll do wild card, and I'll just give you kind of my thoughts on where I think it could go. But tomorrow, Saturday the 10th, we have 2 fun games. The first one, of course, is going to be the Panthers and the Rams. And funny enough, did you know these 2 teams actually played earlier this year? I completely forgot about that. I completely did. And what I also forgot is the fact the Panthers won. The Panthers beat the Rams. Did you know that? I did. I had no freaking idea. Back on November 30th, they won 31-28. Just crazy. Just really crazy. Actually ended with 6 minutes left in the game. Bryce Young throwing a 43-yard dot to Tet McMillan, and the defense coming up big. It was an absolute shootout. This game took place in Carolina, and I'll be very interested to see how the Rams do. I think this is one of those games where everyone's writing off the Panthers. This would be a perfect opportunity for them to pull off the upset. But I am going to go with the Rams. You know, it's undeniable. You might have the MVP in Matthew Stafford. You have 2 of the best wide receivers in the league, Devontae Adams, if he's hopefully healthy, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams, Blake Corum is such a good backfield, and the defense was a top 10 defense this year, as we had already talked over. So, Rams over the Panthers, and the Panthers shouldn't even be here. They lost their last 2 games. You know, they literally lost to the Buccaneers and the Falcons. How in the world have they ended up here? I don't know. And for the Rams, they fought so hard. They went 12-5. They are a far better team, and they will advance to round number 2, or I should better say the divisional round, as the number 5 seed. Now, in terms of our night game, the Bears, the Packers. I should just be open and honest that I'm picking the Bears. I'm a Packers hater, but this game is going to be great. It really is. Going down on Prime Video, I actually believe. Number 2 Bears and number 17 Packers. This is one of my favorite trilogies that we are going to be getting of this entire season. I mean, truly, this is fantastic. And looking at their first 2 games, I mean, think about that first game. It's 21-21. Packers march down the field. You know, they take the touchdown lead. The Bears are then marching. They then throw the pick to end the game. Then it's December 7th, you know, the rematch. And it's an absolute that was the first game that I'm thinking of. The second game, which took place in later December, these 2 are just going at it. And it is a back and forth affair. It might have been December 14th, actually, yeah. Or no, it was the 20th, yeah, because I'm thinking it was right before Christmas, because I had unfortunately missed it. But amazing work. You know, it goes to overtime, then the deep ball to DJ Moore. Just crazy. This is going to be such a fun trilogy. I'm easily picking the Bears. Bear down. Going to be watching the game tomorrow with my family. Big watch party at my uncle and aunt's house. I am stoked. I am absolutely stoked. I am pumped. I'm excited. And bear down is all I have to say. If the Bears really lose the Packers, it's going to be so depressing. Let me just tell you, there's no world I want that to happen. So we'll see what takes place, but give me the Bears over the Packers any day of the week. Which brings us into NFL Sunday. That's right, you still get a little Sunday action. Don't think that you don't. On to the 11th, you are going to be kicking things off with the Jaguars and the Bills. And I love this Jags team. I really do. They're a solid, well-put-together team. I think overall, top to bottom, they're great. They've been on a 8-game winning streak, 13-4, an amazing 3 seed. But the one thing they don't have is playoff experience. And what we have quietly learned over the last, few years of watching the NFL, if you've watched for a while, truly when you get in the playoffs, it's a different ball game. And there's one man who's seasoned, one man who's experienced, one man who is 12-5 with a team that is nowhere near as good as they used to be, a man who doesn't have to deal with Lamar Jackson, a man who doesn't have to deal with Patrick Mahomes, for goodness sakes. It's the year of Josh Allen. I'm telling you, there is no better time for them to do it Okay, and you may have forgotten that in the conference championship to go to the Super Bowl, the Bills had lost. Do you remember that? Do you remember that last year when they went from the wild card all the way to the conference championship? Yeah, what a crazy run that was. And, there is no Mahomes this year. There is no Lamar. There is only Trevor Lawrence, and I don't think Trevor Lawrence is ready for the NFL playoffs. Give me the number 6 seeded Bills any day of the week. I love it. I really do. Bills all day. I really hope that this is Josh Allen's year. Josh Allen's such a likable human being. I'm hoping he can get it done. 6-seeded Bills over the 3-seeded Jags. And dare I say, potentially 2 scores ahead a majority of the game. Moving on to our 3:30 game on January 11th. Eagles 49ers. This could be a conference championship to go to the Super Bowl. What a pleasure of a game to watch. I don't know. Neither outcome will surprise me. And I think that's the big issue. I think that's the issue is I generally don't know. I'm going to look at momentum heading in here. Eagles rested everyone. I don't know if that's going to play an impact, but they go 11-6, reigning Super Bowl champions. So not the most impressive record, but still decent. Meanwhile, you have the 49ers who go 12-5 and just wound up in some hard-fought games. I mean, with the Bears, with the Seahawks, with the, actually they were dominant for a bit of this run, now that I think about it. But tough games to end the year, especially losing to the Seahawks. I think they're going to be coming in hungry and ready, and I think Eagles might be a bit rusty. I really do, and I'm just looking at both teams. Okay, and this Eagles offense is good. I don't think they're as good as they were. I think their defense has carried them. Meanwhile, for the 49ers, I think they have one of the best offenses that they've ever had, and I just think it depends on who they play. And when I look at who they've been playing and the fact that the Seahawks were the team that stunted them, Seahawks are just a whole different level of defense. So I think you're going to see another 6 seed pull it out. I got the 6-seeded 49ers knocking off the Eagles. I do want to see a new Super Bowl champion. I don't care if the 49ers win this year. I just don't like seeing repeats. I really don't. And, the 49ers have been fighting so hard. I want to see Christian McCaffrey get ringed. I want to see Brock Purdy get his ring. There is no Mahomes this year, all right? And if they can knock off the Eagles this early, I will really like their odds. So give me the 49ers to knock off the Eagles in what should be one of the better games of Wild Card Weekend. So with that would have me with the number 1 seeded Seahawks taking on the number 6 seeded 49ers in a trilogy rematch in the divisional round, and that would have the Bears at number 2 hosting the number 5 Rams. I believe, is that another rematch, or are those two not played this year? I forget. There's so many freaking games this year, but that's just in terms of our NFC predictions on where they would land for the wild card. And you know what, I'll actually guide us, down the playoffs to actually go to our Super Bowl prediction. But Bears, I don't think played the Rams this year. No, so that would be the first time those two teams are squaring off. Now for the AFC, how will we be ending NFL Sunday? None other than the Patriots and Chargers. And this Chargers team is fun. They got Amari Hampton. Justin Herbert had a career year. The great work with Ladd McConkey and Quentin Johnson kind of trading who was the star wide receiver all year. They're good. But I'll tell you, good does not beat great. And the Patriots are 14-3, put up 490 points on offense, only gave up 320 points on defense, and went 8-0 on the road. Patriots all day. I think this might be one of the more decisive victories we see. Patriots pulling it out over the Chargers. I would be fairly shocked if the Chargers win this. I would actually be completely dumbfounded, to be so fair. But jumping into Monday, Steelers, Texans. I mean, there's always a chance Aaron Rodgers turns back the clock, but Texans won their last 9 games, for goodness sakes, and only gave up 295 points. That's insane. The only defense besides the Seahawks, so the number 1 defense Seahawks, number 2 defense Texans, doing this is just incredible. And for the Steelers, they made the playoffs because Tyler Loop missed a kick. Let's not dumb it down. They only made it because Tyler Loop missed the field goal. So give me the Texans all day. Another 5 seed winning. I mean, I find it funny that in all my matchups, I have the number 1, number 2, number 5, and number 6 seeds. I just think that's how it's working out this year. Sorry, 3 and 4 and 7 seeds, it's just not looking like it's going to be your year. So that would lead us to have the Broncos take on the Bills and the Pats take on the Texans. So let's go on to our next matchup. So those are my wildcard predictions. So as far as wildcard predictions go, that is what I think on that matter. You can lock in those predictions for the wild card. I am pretty steadfast on a lot of those. Like I said, I'm not really going to be surprised with any upsets just because I do expect them, but those are my wildcard predictions. So we'll take my predictions from here, and I guess this will be my official bracket. So first up, we'll go Texans and Patriots, because that is going to be such a good matchup. Number 2 Pats, number 5 Texans. It's a battle of just two amazing teams. But when I look at this Texans team, I think they're good to make a run, but the Patriots are just so concisely put together. Mike Vrabel has completely turned the franchise around. Drake May is the number 2 or number 1 MVP. It's Drake May or Matthew Stafford. And with how well the Patriots place this year at 14-3, with how bad they've been since Brady left, you got to put some respect on their name. So give me the number 2 seeded Patriots to advance to the conference championship with a trip to the Super Bowl on the line. As for who they will be playing, Broncos or Bills, I think everyone's been talking about how much of frauds the Broncos are, and it's almost gotten to a point where I almost feel like I'm being gaslit into thinking they're bad when they're actually good. But you know, people are bringing up how they did have some impressive wins, but overall they did not have that hard a schedule. And when I look at a 14-3 team, you know, they went 2-0 over the Chiefs, but this is one of the most inferior Chiefs teams we have ever seen in our lives. They also beat the Chargers, but they are clearly, better than the Chargers. They did lose by 2 scores to the Jaguars, only on December 21st. Other than that, a 7-point win over the Raiders, a 8-point win over the Packers, a 1-point win over Commanders, 3-point win over Raiders, 3-point win over Texans, only won by 1 against the Giants, did blow out the Cowboys in late October, 2-point win over the Jets, beat the Eagles by 4 in early October, blew out the Bengals in September, was able to lose to the Chargers and Colts to actually open the year at 0-2. Yeah, I think this team might be frauds as I look over their schedule. So we'll see how Bo Nix does. Same with the rest of his crew with Sean Payton. But this is the year of Josh Allen, baby. That's right. It's Bills Mafia all day. And I just think that Josh Allen will feast upon this team. And we're going to have Patriots Bills, another trilogy in the conference championship to go to the Super Bowl, which is just so poetic. Now, jumping to the divisional round for my predictions in the NFC, you got the Seahawks and the 49ers, and this one's really tricky. It really is, because I just feel like when you play someone so many times, you might start to relax up a bit. You really do, and for the Seahawks team, they have just been incredible. They really have. This team hasn't even lost a game since October 5th. For goodness sakes. And in terms of the season, their losses were to the Buccaneers, 49ers, and who was even their other loss? Now that I'm looking at this, they lost to the Rams, actually. So their last loss was actually November 16th. Forgot about that. But these two have gone 1-1, and this will be a fantastic rematch. But I do think this Seahawks team is just something special with their defense, something special with JSN, and I do have the Seahawks moving on to the conference championship. Now, Bears and Rams, it's so tough. It's so tough. I don't even know if the Bears are going to beat the Packers, for goodness sakes. And, I see a world where even if the Panthers upset the Rams, I really love the Bears' chances. I really do. But for this game, there's just something about the Bears this year, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if they can make the Super Bowl. But I'll tell you what I think they can do. I think they can make the conference championship. I really think they do, and I'm going to go with the Bears to defeat the Rams and go to the conference championship. And is it a silly prediction? Yes, but I love to point out the Commanders last year completely flipped the script on what people think of when in terms of lower seeded teams winning. They really did. They really transcended that by being the 6th seed and making a run all the way to almost the Super Bowl. So, number 1 seeded Seahawks, number 2 Bears in the NFC Conference Championship, and the number 2 seed Patriots taking on the number 6 Bills in the other conference championship. Now, to be honest, I think this is a very realistic Final Four, And I think another realistic thing is we just have a Seahawks-Patriots rematch Super Bowl. I almost feel like it's lining up to be that way, but these are your two options. Seahawks and Patriots or Bills and Bears. There's no other way. There's no other way. You're either going to get Seahawks and Patriots or Bills and Bears. So my predictions is completely fan-based, not logical. Bills against Bears, and I think the Bills win. There's also the case Seahawks and Patriots, and I actually think that the Patriots pull it out. So I'm going to go with the Bills to be the team to win. I have them facing the Bears. That's the most optimal Super Bowl for me. Two teams that everyone could just get behind and love for some reason. But yeah, those are just fantasy predictions at this point. Anything can happen. But yeah, that's just a little fantasy booking. We'll see what happens. We'll follow the games week by week. And yeah, as far as my wildcard predictions go, though, we got, if I can actually remember everyone I'm picking, 49ers, Rams, Bears for the NFC, and we have the Patriots, Bills, and Texans for the AFC for my wild card weekend predictions. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that is all we got. If I were to tell you guys this is actually taking me 2 days to record, would you believe me? No, and if I were to tell you it's 11:30 at night right now, then I'm wrapping this up, and I'm actually going to go to bed once I hop off of this. But it's been so fun going over everything with the UFC, going over everything with the NFL, wrapping things up, and yet we are still getting the new year going. It's funny how that works on episodes like this. But thank you all guys so much for listening. Please feel free to share this episode. Reach out to me. Let me know what you guys want. We're going to look to kind of revamp how this podcast works. I may try and influx the YouTube a bit more, but we'll have to see. So, ladies and gentlemen, have an amazing rest of your month. Have an amazing rest of your year. And, you're going to hear from me sooner because I'll catch you next time on the Surprise Jab Podcast.